Welcome back to the Chit Chat and Crochet podcast, book club edition. I can't believe that this is the 4th episode that we've done on book club. I am absolutely made up that we all love doing book club. In today's episode, what we are going to be talking about is the Vampire Knitting Club series. We are talking about book 3, Crochet and Cauldrons. Also extremely excited that we're talking about the crochet book when we're doing our Whimsy Goth Summer series. So I was made up to be reading this book. Now the reason why I was really happy is although I love the second book because I love a murder mystery, what I felt that it was missing was the witchiness. And I feel like with this book, the witchy element really hypes up. I'm also really happy that so many of you are giving me feedback about the series and how much you're enjoying it. And obviously for me, just very selfish reasons really. I just like the fact that I've now got people that I can discuss this book with. When I first got into it, I very quickly got Liz into it. So me and Liz have been talking about this series for such a long time. And now it's just absolutely amazing that so many of you have now found this love for Nancy Warren's writing. So just before we start, if you've never ever been here before, my name is Stephanie Mitchard. I crochet, I craft, I do lots of different types of things. And this is our little corner of the internet where we come together, we talk about all things crochet, all things crafty, we talk about books, all that kind of stuff. We have an absolutely amazing community here, and every time I do a video I always put it up as a premiere, so that gives us a chance that there's a place that we can actually come together and discuss like the videos, discuss what's going on in our lives, discuss our crochet projects. So it's like having our own little like internet sort of crochet craft club. Now we meet every Wednesday at 7 p.m. That's when we do our Chit Chat and Crochet podcast. And then on Sundays, we have our craft project of the week, and that goes out at 10 a.m. So if all that sounds fun, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. And we also have a Facebook group as well, which is the Mitchard Mateys Craft Club. Thank you, Wendy, for giving us that name. But yeah, over there, you are free to post your creations, post what you are up to. Currently, a lot of us are working on the crochet along. We're actually doing a little crochet along this month, a celestial granny square tote bag. I'll link below the video where I discuss the granny square tote bag and everything to do with the Whimsy Goth Summer series. I'll link that down below. It was a video that went out on the 1st of July. But yeah, if you want to be involved in the community, head over to the Facebook group. Everyone's really active over there. Now, I never ever want my content to ever go behind a paywall. I think that you should have access to all my content regardless of your budget. But for those of you who do want to contribute and support the channel, I have made a YouTube membership. So for $2.99 a month, what you get is you get a little badge next to your name saying that you're part of the membership. You also get priority replies to the comments, and you also get a shout out in every single video. So I want to give a huge shout out to Wendy, to David, to Emma, to Claire, to Teddy, to Emma, and to Liz. Thank you so much for every single month supporting my channel. Thank you so much. And if you don't want to do a membership, you can also just buy me a coffee or buy me a nice little ball of wool over on the coffee app, which is all linked down below. Also, I just want to also say, please remember there is no pressure to donate, no pressure to join up. The most important thing for me is that you're here and part of this amazing community. So just a few other things before we get started into the podcast. What am I working on? Well, I am working right now on a patchwork autumnal vest. So all my projects for this month, except for the Granny Square Celestial Crochet Along, I have actually sorted and finished. So now I'm actually getting working on a lot of the autumn projects. So I'm really excited. I'm going to announce that soon, probably in a later podcast. But feeling really hyped by it, feeling really excited. So it's going to be a tapestry work where I'm going to do different tapestry patches, and these are going to be mixed in with just plain patches as well. I've actually never ever made a vest. Liz loves a vest. She makes loads of vests, and I was feeling very inspired by her. So that is what I'm working on today in the video. Next week is actually like a massive week. So next Wednesday, we are actually going to be doing our very first watch along. So the structure for next Wednesday is we're going to start the podcast at 7 p.m. When the podcast finishes, we're going to go live really, really quickly, and we're going to do the Dossier perfume giveaway. So remember, if you want to be in with a chance of winning the Dossier perfume, you need to go over to the podcast that I'll link below in the notes, and make sure you comment on that video telling me what kind of perfume that you want or what perfume you're drawn to. If your comment isn't there in the video, you're not included in that sort of giveaway. So make sure you go and give that a little bit of a follow, and make sure you go and comment what you want, and you'll be in with a chance of winning a Dossier perfume. And there's 2 perfumes up for grabs. Also, another massive thing on the 23rd, A Modern Yarn over in Formby, they're going to be doing their Granny Square event. Now, I know that Wendy's going, David's going, I'm definitely going to be there too. And we're going to be talking about all things Granny Square. So if you can make it, come down. I would love to meet some more of you in person. It'd be absolutely amazing. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is the Celestial Granny Square tote bag. Oh my goodness. I have been just seeing all of your creations over on Facebook. It's so cool. I have noticed something though, and so has Wendy. The size of the bag is actually going ginormous. I don't know what I was thinking. So I am most likely, what I'm probably going to do is make mine a little bit smaller and do it 9 squares by 9 squares to make it more rectangular. And the squares that I've got left over, I am probably going to make a purse out of them. That is what I'm thinking. I'm also going to be posting some updates over on the Facebook group about that. So if you have got any questions, head on over there. We're going to be discussing it over on Facebook. So I am just editing the podcast, and I forgot to tell you all about camping. Camping was crazy. We came home a day early. It was really crazy. So basically, I forgot the tent poles. So when we got to the Lake District and we started setting up the tents and setting up camp, I had to drive all the way back to Liverpool to go and get the tent poles. So that was like thing number 1 that went wrong. That night as well, the rain was so heavy, I could barely sleep. Every little sound. And then suddenly, maybe about 2 or 3 in the morning, we had like scratching on the side of the tent. Like this like proper scratching. And then we had like a snarfy kind of like eating sound, like an animal sound. And I'm going, Reds, oh my God, Reds, there's something in the tent, there's something in the tent. And we didn't find out exactly what it was. I think it was most likely a fox has got into the tent and got into the rubbish bag. Because when Red put his head out, he kind of like, I was like, don't put your head like at eye level, like don't crawl out, zip the zipper at the top so you're not at eye level, because if it's a badger or like a fox, you're going to become like face to face with it. So he stood up and kind of stuck his head out. He's like, no, there's nothing in here, everything looks fine. When I got out in the morning, the bin bag that we had inside the tent had been dragged out from under the tent, out from the porch, outside. Not only had this fox robbed off with the bin bag, it also robbed off with a packet of bread rolls and a 24 packet of like a multi-pack of crisps from Asda. So going from our tent into the bush was this line of frazzles and onion rings just leading into the woods. It was crazy. We also had like a really good time though. So although there was like a lot of kind of like craziness, it was still really, really, really fun. Jackson had a great birthday. We hired a boat, we went on Windermere, we went to the rock shop. He loves the rock shop, so we went to the rock shop. We went to all the different places that we love to go to, and his granddad, bless him, gave him £10 as like birthday spends, like holiday spends, and said go and buy yourself an ice cream. And he took himself to the chocolate shop where he found these chocolate lollies, and one of them said happy birthday, and he went up to, he was like, I'm gonna buy this because it's my birthday. And then everyone in the chocolate shop was saying happy birthday to him. It was so sweet. So although there was difficult times, there was also some very, very positive times. And the campsite that we stayed at was Low Ray campsite, National Trust site. 100% we are going to stay there again. It was absolutely amazing. I cannot fault the facilities. Absolutely unreal. So that's just a little bit of an update on how our camping trip went. I was so tired I couldn't even crochet. Back to the video. So let's talk about the Vampire Knitting Club. Let's get on with it. So when discussing the books, I always kind of go off my little prompt list of questions. So if you're wanting to join in and give me your feedback and you're thinking I don't really know where to start, I always post a little bit of a prompt list down below to kind of get you started. Or you can always just send me your thoughts on what you actually think of the book. So the first question is always, what drew you to this book? And to be honest with you, the thing that drew me to this book is just reading Nancy Warren's previous 2 books. And now I just trust her judgment. She could literally put any book out and I'll just sit there and read it. Oh, in terms of Vampire Knitting Club, I've not actually read any of the other ones, like the Vampire Book Club or the Cooking Show. What do we think, guys? Should we try and have a little look at some of those other books? After we've done the Vampire Knitting Club series, we can maybe kind of like delve into some of the, you know, the cooking ones and maybe the book club ones. Let me know what you think. So my initial expectation is going to be a murder mystery. Lucy's going to solve a murder and Crochet is going to be part of this story in some kind of way. Now, in terms of what actually happened, did it hold up to my expectations? I will probably say it went way over my expectations. This book really went there with the paranormal element, didn't it? It really hit hard. I was not expecting a kind of demonic kind of presence in this book, this kind of weird, horrible, ancient sort of demon. That was like, it was like, whoa. My mum is so funny. My mum doesn't like horror in any kind of way. Like, didn't like the Interview with a Vampire. When she was watching the film, got freaked out when the vampire turned the light on. Like, my mum hates anything to do with horror, like really, really hates it. And when she was reading this book, she was like, oh my gosh, this was like, she was like, it was really, really scary. I almost like didn't want to carry on reading it. And oh, I was like, oh my gosh, it kind of made me think, because I think I'm maybe a little bit desensitized to horror because I watch a lot of horror films. I'm a proper slasher girl. Like, I love a slasher film. I love slashers. I love vampires, werewolves, ghosts, witches. Not really big on zombies. I'm not really a zombie kind of girl. Bit like particular with my horror, but I'm a big horror person. And seeing my mum's reaction kind of made me reflect on how I perceived this book, because I was like, oh my gosh, no, it actually is like that final scene is really horrendous and really quite frightening. But I really feel again with this book, it answered what I really wanted, because what I wanted was something more magical, something more spooky. And this book gave that to me. It gave it to me. So the book's central plot line. So Lucy's parents, who we've heard quite a lot about, 2 archaeologists, they met when they were both at Oxford. Lucy's mum, she's from Oxford, her father is from America. They meet, they fall in love, they go on digs together, and they move back to Boston. And then this is where kind of Lucy ends up kind of finding herself, you know, back in Oxford when her grandmother passes away and leaves her the knitting shop. So Lucy is operating the knitting shop, and one day her parents just show up out of the blue. And her mum kind of seems like she's a little bit out of it, like she's a little bit drunk, which Lucy is kind of like a little bit like taken aback by. Also very taken aback by the fact that they left the dig with no real kind of good reason to leave the dig. I mean, you got to think her parents found out that, you know, Lucy's grandmother passes away, Agnes passes away, and they don't leave the dig site. They just kind of leave Lucy there to just kind of figure it out for herself. So there's not really a good enough reason why they're there. So another thing that Lucy's mum kind of does out of character is that she's brought home an artifact from the dig, which is, you know, really unethical and, you know, very, very strange and out of character for something that either one of her parents would actually do. Her mother basically says that this artifact just kind of called to her and was saying that she believed that it belonged to Lucy and like it should be for Lucy. She tells Lucy to read the hieroglyphics, and when Lucy reads the hieroglyphics, the mirror starts to get really, really hot in her hands, and then once it starts getting really hot, a woman in the mirror actually appears. So the woman, whose name is Piratamun, tells her that this ancient being has basically got control of her and that she is going to be destroyed by this kind of ancient demon. So her mother then kind of like snaps out of it. She can't remember coming to Oxford, can't remember why she's there. She can't really remember giving her the mirror, like all these things. Like her memory is just kind of gone. Her mother has been taken and put under a trance. So her mother and father instantly just kind of go back into their old ways, and they start thinking about, right, we need to get some students together. We're here in Oxford. We're going to be taking people back to the dig. So let's start advertising. We're going to get students to come to the shop and, you know, we'll interview people. And this is where this very attractive Australian man comes into it. He's kind of like an Indiana Jones type. He's also like very flirty with Lucy as well. And like Lucy's like quite like, you know, okay, I'm going to flirt with this guy. And his name is Pete Taylor. Now, the tea rooms have kind of gone back to normal, which, you know, good. That's amazing. Things are a little strained between the two Watts sisters. A mother and her decide they're going to go next door, and they're kind of seeing the two Watts sisters. And Lucy is kind of thinking, like, how can we get these ladies back together? This is also where Lucy's mum tells her that she's invited a bunch of students for dinner that night. And Lucy's like, how am I going to get all of this done? I'm trying to find a new shop assistant. How am I going to cook for all these people? And also, on top of that, her mum has gone and invited the two Watts sisters to the meal as well. Throughout this book, like, her parents just seem awful. I mean, take out the fact that they brought her this, like, really, like, horrendous, like, mirror. But, like, all they're doing is criticising her, kind of, like, her choices. Not necessarily the dad more than mum. The dad's also kind of, like, not great, because he's just in his own world and not really focusing on the fact that, you know, his daughter has actually had this huge life change and has, like, moved to a new country. She's left her job. She's taken on this whole new life, and then she's also grieving this grandmother that's always been there. And neither of them are kind of, like, acknowledging that, really, like, in my opinion. And I feel like they do just take Lucy for granted, and Lucy's just kind of got to, like, you know, just be there and just kind of, like, pick up the pieces when they, like, invite, like, random students to the house, or, you know, oh yeah, you'll sort dinner, you'll do that. And it's like, that's not really, like, that's not very nice, and it's not very fair. And I think that it's like they kind of take her and her, like, presence for granted. Now, another big thing in the book, another big plot point, is that we're trying to find a new shop assistant, because the last shop assistant was Katie, who was the girlfriend of the murderer in the last book. So she's moved back to Australia. She's gone back over there, and that means that Lucy now needs to find somebody new, and she hires this lady called Eileen, who seems absolutely amazing. She has taught knitting. She has taught crochet to students. She used to own her own knit shop. She likes to come in early. She even brings, like, a little kettle from home so she can make them both, like, cups of tea and biscuits. And it just seems like she's just absolutely amazing. Eileen also offers to cook dinner for her, because she's on her own now. She's moved to Oxford to be closer to her family, and she loves cooking, and she doesn't really get to do it for, like, large groups anymore. So she was like, yeah, let me cook it, and she ends up cooking everybody a shepherd's pie. Now, Lucy's parents basically turned around and said to her, like, we're gonna have, like, a bunch of students turn up. You're going to also need to get some pizzas and stuff like that, and then we'll have, like, our dinner. Now, obviously, the vampires, they know all about this, like, haunted mirror situation, because obviously Lucy needs to confide into somebody. She can't rely on her parents. Her mum completely denies that she's a witch or anything to do with witchcraft. So she's completely on her own, except for her amazing vampire group. Now, Rafe also, not just being somebody who is there for her in terms of, like, her witchcraft, he also goes and gets the pizzas for her. How nice is that? Just taking, like, one more thing, like, off her plate for her. While getting the pizzas, he tells her about a very interesting witch called Margaret Twig. A very, very powerful witch who's head of a coven in Morton under Witchwood. Oh wait, so this night actually isn't the night that they have the shepherd's pie. So what happens is they're having, like, a load of students come round, and Lucy goes and gets loads of pizzas, and then what happens is their family end up inviting 2 of the students or 3 of the students to the meal with the Miss Watts sisters, where Eileen ends up cooking the shepherd's pie. So Margaret Twig makes this potion for her, and the most tragic thing about this whole situation is Margaret Twig ends up taking Nyx from her as payment. How horrible is that? Lucy is absolutely distraught. Nyx is also absolutely distraught, and I'm, like, wondering, like, what Nyx must feel like watching Lucy drive away, leaving her with Margaret Twig. She just seems like such a horrible woman, like, taking, like, her cat away from her. Just awful. The description of her home, though, just seems absolutely amazing. Like, cottage with like a really beautiful kind of like wild like, sort of kitchen witch kind of garden. Oh, sounds absolutely unreal. So the next day, she's got the potion off Margaret Twig, and she's invited the Watts sisters round, and her parents have turned around and gone, do you know what, we're going to have some of those archaeology students from last night also come to the dinner, so I hope there's enough shepherd's pie. Like, genuinely, her parents are just awful. They are just terrible, terrible human beings. So they end up inviting Pete, the Australian, another gentleman called Logan, and a lady called Priya. They all go to the dinner. Lucy ends up feeding them all this potion inside the shepherd's pie. And nothing happens. This revealing potion, just nothing happens. Nothing ever goes on. The only thing that does happen is when Pete takes a bite of the shepherd's pie, it's like you can almost like taste something in it. And Lucy's kind of like, oh gosh, is it him? Is he the person? He's like really beautiful and gorgeous. Hopefully it's not him. But no, nothing happens. It's almost like he kind of recognizes that there's something going on within the shepherd's pie. So after the dinner, another thing that kind of heats up is Pete and Lucy. So Pete actually says to her at the end of the meal, walk me home, which is kind of like taken back because she's like, walk you home? I'm already home. And he's like, that's a bit sexist. Like, you should walk me home. They walk home, they kiss. And then Pete asks her out on a date. Now, Rafe is also lurking in the shadows and ends up walking Lucy home. And he's like basically telling her to like, be careful. Like, you don't know him. You don't know who he is. But really, probably Rafe's just jealous. But also he does have a point. Like, a demon is basically after her and she doesn't know who the demon is. Now, the next day, tragedy strikes. Logan, who was also at the dinner, has died from a fatal heart attack. Meaning that Lucy and that little group of people who were at that meal were some of the last people to see him alive. Lucy freaks out because she basically thinks that that potion that she's put has got something to do with his death, and she wants to go to see Margaret Twig. She also finds out, especially at the meal with Pete, she finds out that Pete is actually a wizard, and so was Logan. Logan was a wizard, which she found out from Margaret Twig, and his mentor actually got killed by this demon. Pete as well, his mentor also was killed by the same demon, and he has been tracking this demon from continent to continent, trying to find a way of avenging his mentor. Now, in a twist of fate, Margaret ends up bringing Nyx back to Lucy. Thank goodness. And basically it's because Nyx has hexed her. Margaret Twig ended up with boils all over her face, and she was like, take this cat. I can't deal with this cat. Just take this cat back. I don't want any of this, and you fix this all over my face. Lucy also finds out that she is a super witch, which basically means because her mother rejected her powers went into Lucy. So she's kind of like a witch times two. Now, this night where Margaret Twig ends up bringing back the cat, Lucy is with Pete, and they're going back to the shop, and they all kind of feel that there's a bit of like a weird kind of funniness in the air. Now, a massive plot twist. This is where like the biggest shock for me is when they all arrive back to the shop. Lucy enters, the lights are all on, and she's like, why are the lights on? And she goes in and then realizes that Pete and Margaret can't get through the threshold. They are still outside of the shop, and it's almost like there's an invisible barrier between them. And in the corner is Eileen, her shop assistant, and Eileen is crocheting a poppet. Now, I love that with poppets. Poppets are, something to do with, British folklore. And the idea of like a voodoo doll, it's basically like that. And she's making this poppet, and she can hear she's actually got her mum locked in the back. The demon is Eileen. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? Because I was like really shocked when I first found that out. When Lucy enters the shop, Eileen says to her, have you been out whoring? Like, girl, mind your manners. Like, that is like a really like mental thing to say. Like, no, she's just been on a date. Like, calm down, Eileen. Like, you did never ever go on a date before. Like, oh my gosh. And then her image kind of starts to like shake and waver. Just something that was kind of talked about in the book, basically saying that you must be using a lot of power and a lot of energy trying to keep up this masquerade of the image that she's trying to hold. So in between this kind of image of this lovely old lady, you're kind of getting these flashes of this like horrible, grotesque monster. Now, her mum is locked in the back, and when she goes to the back, Eileen surrounds her with fire, which Lucy uses her powers and is able to kind of diminish the fire a little bit. She still has the revealing potion, and she chucks the revealing potion over Eileen to show the real form of this actual horrendous monster. Like, how terrifying is that? Now, the demon with her mother, the poppet, is actually supposed to be representative of her mother, and she starts to unravel those like strings. She starts to frog it, and when she's frogging this poppet, Lucy's mother, her feet, from her feet up, start to disappear, and she's like screaming in pain. Lucy is trying to everything she can with her powers. She gets the knitting needles from the first vampire knitting club that she ever went to, the ones that she'd sharpened. She was like throwing them across the room, and she had this idea. She sees that the trapdoor is right in the middle of that circle, and if she can just get that trapdoor open, the vampires can jump in and spring into action. She picks up a knitting needle that's been sharpened and uses it as a wand to focus all the energy on that latch of that door. She does that, and then suddenly all the vampires jump in and they kind of spook the creature, and it gives them a little bit of an upper hand. She picks up the mirror and shows the creature its own reflection, and with that, the creature burns up. What's left behind is poor Amira Tamoon, who's absolutely made up that she's free. She's like, this is amazing, this is wonderful. Lucy, I am now I am now at your beck and call. I am forever like in your debt. Like I'm so sorry. You know, I'm thank you so much for freeing me, and I'm absolutely sorry that I led this creature to you. Lucy is kind of like taken back because this poor lady is basically saying she's going to be like in her servitude for forever, for her entire life, and Lucy's kind of like, no, like this is the 21st century, like we don't do that now. Like we're just gonna try and figure things out, and you're gonna have a nice life now because you've been trapped and locked in this horrendous mirror. And that is basically where the book ends. It's so much happened, so many characters were introduced, and I just think it's absolutely amazing. Now, in terms of the structure, Wendy was saying this in the last book, she likes the fact that it is so snappy, and each chapter just leads into the next one, so you're not kind of getting confused or being like, what day is this, where are we? You know exactly where you are in the structure of the story. Like, the story like doesn't take you off somewhere else. I also like the fact, like, in terms of it being like a satisfying end, I found it really, really satisfying. I found it was all very neatly tied up, where if, you know, if Nancy didn't want to continue with the series, everything was all tied up and there was nothing left unanswered, which I really, really liked. And I also really like the fact that she kind of really went there with the witchcraft and with the paranormal element. Except for one thing that is kind of unresolved is her mum just kind of doesn't acknowledge the witchcraft like at all, and it doesn't really even get discussed, which I kind of like wish that they kind of had that conversation, especially with the mental kind of thing that has just happened. It's just kind of like, yeah, that was weird. Like, they don't really kind of go into it. Talking about the setting as well, obviously the knitting shop is the epicenter really of where everything happens. The other places, obviously the college where Logan went and got murdered, his dorm room, but also there was a conversation between Lucy and Pete in the Eagle and Child, which is the pub that Tolkien would go to. So they sat there in this pub having this discussion of like demons from like another world. And it almost kind of echoes those conversations that Tolkien and his friends when they were young would be sitting in that pub talking about these kind of otherworldly kind of creations, these fictional kind of places in their minds. So I thought that was really, really fun to have this little nod to Tolkien in there. I really like the discussions around archaeology as well. I think the archaeology conversations are really, really interesting to listen to. There's like one particular passage where Lucy is talking about like scorch marks, like flame marks, and talking about like the precision of archaeologists like needing to know, is it a bear mark by fire? Is it a singe mark? Like, what exactly has caused this? And like stuff like that I find really, really interesting anyway. So I found that really, really fun to listen to. Also, Pete totally reminds me of Indiana Jones. Like, I wonder if Nancy, whether that's who she kind of had like in her head when she was writing the Pete character. So the key themes in the book, again, I think grief is definitely a theme, because Lucy kind of has to relive this grief again when her mum comes back. Because again, this question of like, why are you still here? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? And then they're talking about the Gran, and it's like feeling all that loss like all over again. But it's also a lot of stress because Gran is still around, and Lucy's mum can't meet her. Like, that will be just way too much for Lucy's mum to even handle, because she's so not open to any kind of paranormal thing. And I think another big thing is kind of like acceptance of who you are and what happens when you're not true to yourself. Like, if you're not true to yourself, bad things can happen. Like, her mother left herself open. By rejecting those magical powers, it left her open to this demon attaching itself to her. And like, if she had lent into her witchcraft powers, would she have been protected? Would this have happened? Also, a bit of a theme of rivalry with Margaret Twig. Margaret Twig senses that Lucy is an extremely powerful witch. Margaret Twig has always been the head witch. She's always been the most powerful. And then suddenly you've got this younger witch who's shown up out of the blue, who's like this double witch. And she's now panicking, thinking, is Lucy gonna, take over the coven? Is she gonna be like number one? And then to make things worse, instead of like accepting that maybe that could be a possibility and Margaret becoming a mentor to Lucy, she has to take Nyx from her, which again would immobilise her at a time where she's, at the end of the day, she's still a baby witch. She still doesn't know how to use all of her powers and really heavily relies on her familiar to get her through these difficult times. So Margaret taking away that power is kind of like really horrible, like not really good, and that really does, I think, spark off the rivalry between the two women. So what did I like, what did I dislike about the book? What I loved, I've said it before, the paranormal element. I am so happy. I mean, I love a murder mystery, but I love the fact that the murder kind of element was just this horrible like paranormal demon. I just really, really enjoyed that part of the book. Like, it pivoted from just this kind of like standard murder mystery to like a murder mystery paranormal kind of vibe. I don't actually think I have a criticism for this book, to be honest. I don't think I do. I think maybe like, no, I'm trying to think. I really can't think of a criticism really for this. I just really, really love this book. Now, how did the book make me feel? Now, like all of Nancy's books, I just think that she has such an amazing talent for world creating. When I read these books, I feel like I literally step into Lucy's Oxford, and there's just such a lovely escapism with her writing. And like, I listen to these books when I'm commuting. That's like the main time that I'm listening to this. I sometimes find commuting, I just find it so tedious. I find it so tedious. So working on my crochet, listening to this is so soothing, and just it makes me just feel like so warm and happy. Now, memorable passages, obviously the final scene where the demon is like unraveling Lucy's mum's legs and her legs are just disappearing. That was so terrifying, like so scary. Now, how does this book compare to the others in the series? I think with every single book, the story just gets richer and richer, because you're getting this depth of development in each character. Especially like Lucy, you think about like Lucy and the way she is. You think about her upbringing. Our upbringing really affects the development of the person that we end up becoming. And seeing the dynamic between her and her mum and dad, I thought was really, really interesting. I mean, the characters, they're developing more and more, which I already know because I've read all the books in the series already. So for me now, going back with this and looking at it with a more analytical view, it's fun seeing these like small little developments with each character. So the only thing that really was left unanswered for me, when I really think about it, is Lucy's mum and her opinion on witchcraft. Like, how is she rationalising what just happened? How is she rationalising Miratamun now being out in the open, being there? But obviously, her being, her an archaeologist with a specialism in, Egyptology, having this person who is from, ancient Egypt, how is she rationalising all of this? I'd probably say that was the only thing that was kind of left unanswered for me. So every time we do book club, I like to hear what you think. So Wendy has sent me what she thought of the book. So I'm going to read what she thought now. So going into the book was like putting on a favourite cardie. I love that. I love that so much because that's how I feel. I feel like I'm being like just wrapped up. And I'm so familiar with the narrator and the pace of the stories, it did not disappoint. The main plot was a cursed mirror from Egypt with a vendetta against Lucy and witchkind in general. The whodunit element was not quite as twisty and turny as other books, as I was sure the perfect shop assistant with the soul-sucking demon, and it was. Yeah, I mean, I literally was like, when I was like listening back to it, I'm like, yeah, she's too good, she's too perfect. Like, she teaches crochet, she teaches knitting, she's had a wool shop, she can cook. Everything was just a bit too perfect, wasn't it? That didn't spoil anything though, because I enjoyed the build up to the big reveal. Shame because she really was perfect for Lucy. I know, imagine if Eileen had just been a nice old nana that's just moved to Oxford and just wants to just work in a wool shop. I mean, I'd love to do that. The ending was very satisfying and everything was tied up really nicely. The setting was of course the same as normal, but we went into the college too, nice and Oxfordy. I am so familiar with the setting now, and of course when I visualise Cardinal Wolsey's, I see a modern yarn! Characters were surprising in this book. We first met Lucy's parents and they drove me mad at first. I wasn't sure about the Egyptian theme to begin with, but I got very into it. It was scary. Miratamoon could have been a cliche and annoying, but no, she was totally relatable, even though she was 3,000 years old. Well done, Nancy. I completely agree with that, you know, like I haven't really thought about that, because that's the thing, is like she isn't kind of like, you know, kind of be like, what is this iPhone? What is this? What is this? She's just kind of very like, she comes across quite obviously like fearful and overwhelmed, and I think that's like a really great way of kind of getting that across without going into cliches or leaning into cliches or being like, you know, in the old world this is what we did or anything like that. As I said above, I really warmed to the new assistant, but I knew I was being drawn in and that she would turn out to be the demon. One thing I really enjoyed was how protected the vampires became when they knew about the curse, and how Lucy has always had someone looking out for her. Margaret Twig, what an old cow she is. It really upset me when she took Nyx as payment for a protection spell. That really got to me, since I am so very soul bonded with my fur babies. I found it quite stressful, and I was relieved when Nyx came back and Margaret got a kick in. I mean, yeah, terrible. That's like literally the fact that like poor Nyx was in the window like scratching to get out, just awful. I like the theme of the bond between witches born in different times throughout history, and there was a family bond too when Lucy's mum was at risk. Not had that before in the series. I loved the book, although the plot was a bit more guessable. That was not the down point at all. I loved the mirror with the blue light and the scary connection to ancient Egypt. The only slight complaint, not enough crochet considering the title. Do you know what? Yeah, I mean, maybe she could have gone into the fact, I mean, there was a slight conversation, wasn't there, about like, oh, I make these little puppets, the grandchildren love them. Like, maybe there could have been like a crochet class being taught, or I will teach this class of puppets, and maybe there was like, I don't know, just something like that maybe. The character of Miratamu made me think that people are just like us. Even when they were alive thousands of years ago. They are not really spooky or mystical, they are still just people. That was heartening, as Egyptians are always painted as really severe in the ancient paintings. Once again, the book made me feel safe and cozy, as despite the soul-sucking demon, Lucy was surrounded by love and brave people. I'm not getting sick of these books yet. Oh, thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing those thoughts with us. Remember, if you want to share your thoughts and we talk about the next book, and you just want to write like a little paragraph, send me an email to mitchardshandmade@gmail.com and I'll read them out in the next video. So I thoroughly enjoyed reading book 3. I think, again, it really scratched the itch for wanting that kind of paranormal phenomenon. And I love a murder mystery, and I love the fact that they kind of both got combined with that. So the next book that we are going to be reading in the Vampire Knitting Club series is Stockings and Spells. So I'm going to read the description of what's on Nancy's website. the Vampire Knitting Club decides to take part in Oxford's holiday market, selling exquisite hand-knit scarves, sweaters and gift items. Their most popular item is the hand-knit Christmas stockings, brightly coloured and extra long to squeeze in a few small extra gifts. But when a sales clerk in another booth is found strangled with one of the stockings, Lucy Swift and her undead detectives are on the case, determined to find out who would do such a terrible thing and why. In the meantime, Lucy's working hard at her spell book, learning to be a witch, with the help of her black cat familiar and her new assistant. Miratamun is a 3,000-year-old Egyptian witch, and she's having trouble with some of the concepts of modern life, such as traffic, smartphones, and anything powered by electricity. Life at Cardinal Wolsey's knitting shop in Oxford, England, is as colourful as the most garnished Christmas sweater. Joining the fun, this cosy mystery has no sex or gore, lots of fun and humour. Grab your copy today. So that episode is going to be out on the 10th of September. And I know it's a Christmas episode. I know it's like a Christmassy kind of story. And we're all about Halloween at the moment. But that's where we're up to with the series. So we're going to do our little book 4 and it's going to be unreal. So if you want to join in and tell me what you think of book 4 of the Vampire Knitting Club series, make sure that you send me your ideas and answers by the 1st of September. And if you need any prompts to kind of, give your thoughts, I'm going to leave a list of questions down in the notes. So thank you so much for taking part in book club. Thank you so much for getting into the Vampire Knitting Club series with me. And thank you so much for just making it to the end of the episode and supporting my channel. Like, you'll never know how much that actually means to me. So remember, if you've enjoyed the video, give us a like, give us a subscribe. And if I don't see you on Sunday, I'll see you next Wednesday in the Chit Chat and Crochet podcast. See you later.